Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at and whenever you're watching this. We've got another video here in the SCP universe that we're going to be checking out. This is the exploring series Dr. Clef. This one's been requested by some people as well, so we're going to be jumping into this here and seeing who Dr. Clef is and what they're about. Links will be down below in the description to the original video and to the exploring series channel, as always. So if you can do me a favor, please click those links, give the man a sub if you're not already subbed to him, if you enjoy his content. He makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe as well as others, and if you enjoy this video of his, then please go over there and hit that like button on the video and give the man a like. So if you'd like to join our discussions when we do these reactions live, as you can see we're doing this live right now, we'd love to have you guys come in, come hang out, join the discussions. Give your 2 cents on any of the topics we're going over in the videos, etc., etc. There is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description. You can take a look at the YouTube membership benefits and the various tiers. See if you have any interest. You can get early access videos, priority in any kind of requests you might have for videos you want me to do, etc., etc. Yeah, just take a look at it if you decide you want to take your support for the channel to the next level. But with all that said, let's jump into this again. The exploring series, Dr. Clef.
Dr. Clef. We've already taken a look at one of the more well-known doctors working for the SCP Foundation,
right?
Dr. Bright.
Dr. Bright.
But an organization as large and as strange as the Foundation is bound to have more than one unusual individual working for it.
Already getting, you know, Serpentine vibes, obviously, with this, but could be, you know, something else.
Dr. Alto Clef is in many ways even more unusual than Dr. Bright, but overall doesn't have quite the same infamous reputation. Various stories and tales about Dr. Clef go back a good number of years, and it can be difficult to paint a cohesive picture of the character. I'll attempt to provide a small summary of some of Dr. Clef's more notable interactions and potential bits of his history, but keep in mind there are a great number of stories being left out of this summary.
Gotcha.
To begin with, Dr. Clef's backstory is among the most mysterious things in the SCP universe.
Yeah, this artwork so far is very strange. It's more kind of what I would put in line with like Darkicism, something like that, than, you know, something I would associate with like the SCP Foundation.
Which is saying quite a bit, mostly due to the fact that Clef has a reputation for being a notorious liar. The most common element of his backstory, though, is that prior to becoming a doctor working for the SCP Foundation, he actually worked for the Global Occult Coalition as a field agent. According to his GOC personnel file, he was recruited to the GOC in 1981 as Agent Ukulele, and had his first confirmed kill a year later, taking down something called the Hillsborough Beast, despite severe losses to his team, earning him the Silver Aegis Commendation. In 1986, though, he was tasked with containing something referred to as xenobiological hemorrhagic prion, some sort of alien disease, which...
Yeah, I mean, immediately I think of 610 with that, but like, yeah, interesting. Also getting, you know, xenomorph alien vibes, but anyway.
He failed to do, resulting in an unknown amount of deaths. Afterwards, he went on a sabbatical from work until 1989, when he was promoted to a special operative. In the 90s, he had a confirmed kill on something called the Goddess, but was unable to confirm a kill on a related entity called the Daughter.
Interesting.
We'll get back to that in a minute. In the 2000s, he confirmed his 99th kill of a threat entity and asked to retire from active duty, which was granted. An unknown amount of time passed, during which apparently he disappeared from the GOC, but he eventually resurfaced, now working for the SCP Foundation as Dr. Alto Clef. His personnel file also mentions his aptitude with various firearms, demolitions, and vehicle handling.
An interesting picture of like a bird head.
His alterations and talents include a standard optics array and standard longevity treatments, as well as a resistance to standard photography techniques. Clef's face apparently can't be photographed in any way, appearing on camera as some sort of animal head instead.
That would be the reason why.
The reason for this, among many other things, is a mystery. Ultimately, what this personnel file tells us, though, is that Dr. Clef was a highly talented and decorated field agent working for the GOC before suddenly retiring and joining the SCP Foundation instead.
Which, I mean, from what they've told us so far, you know, the idea of killing a goddess, killing something known as the goddess, but then potentially sparing something known as the daughter. I mean, obviously that gives you the idea that the daughter was, in fact, the daughter of this goddess in some way, and that maybe he spared it for some reason, and doing that job somehow altered his perception on what he is doing and what should be doing, working with the GOC, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe it was a situation where after he, you know, killed it, maybe it's something that actually he thought was didn't need to die, could have been contained, something that could have been learned from more, et cetera, et cetera. Who knows?
Let's go back to that confirmed goddess kill from the 90s, referred to as the Cornwall incident. Clef was dispatched as the lead of a strike team to Cornwall, England, to take down a nature goddess and her followers. The goddess was intent on completing some sort of magical ritual that would revert humanity back to a pre-industrial state. The strike team completed the mission successfully, with Clef himself pulling the trigger on the goddess. But the mission log notes that there was no confirmation on the death of the daughter of the goddess. What actually happened was that Clef had the chance to kill the daughter, but chose not to, instead taking her to a local convent with ties to the GOC. The intent was for her to grow up unaware of her nature and hopefully live a normal life. But years later, she inadvertently caused the death of a bystander. The GOC swooped in and marked her for termination, as is their nature, but Clef intervened. Although retired from active duty, he still had connections and managed to take the girl away, bringing her to the one organization with the capability to protect her, the SCP Foundation. Unaware to...
So, I mean, I kind of like pieced that together a little bit. It was somewhat of what I was thinking.
Most, however, is that Clef met that nature goddess a number of years ago, when he was much younger. He had been lost in the woods, and met a girl with antlers in her hair and hooves for feet.
Maybe it's actually his daughter.
The daughter, as you've guessed, is his.
Yeah.
He hoped to give her a normal life and keep her existence somewhat a secret in the convent, but it wasn't to be. He then brought her to the Foundation, and shortly after, left the GOC and joined the Foundation to be closer to her. Within the SCP Foundation, the daughter is listed as SCP-166, the teenage succubus. 166's primary anomalous property activates when viewed by any human male, which causes 100% of them to attempt immediate sexual contact.
Yikes.
This can often lead to an obsession after being removed from 166's presence, which generally requires death to cease. The nuns at the convent in Cornwall say that the girl was brought to them by a person of indistinguishable features, who claimed that she was the offspring of an elder creature of great power. The convent life led 166 to become highly religious, and she has requested religious books, rosaries, access to a Catholic priest, and so on. Her anomalous property brings her even more grief with her religious principles.
I would bet, yeah.
There are also some clues to her connection to a nature goddess in her description, which states that wearing any clothing quickly leads to sores breaking out, a vulnerability to any airborne particulate matter such as cigarette smoke, and she requires no typical sustenance.
Interesting.
The accident that led to her leaving the convent occurred when a young man sneaked into the convent to visit another novice and accidentally saw 166. He became violently obsessed, eventually killing a nun and injuring 3 others before being killed. This is where there's a slight discrepancy. The author in a separate post says that the GOC intended to kill 166 at this point, and Clef saved her by bringing her to the Foundation. The 166 article, however, claims that a Foundation operative heard of the incident, realized 166's property, and brought in a female agent who negotiated her transfer.
Interesting with the 3 different eyes here, and each one is a different color as well. Well, that's interesting that there is a discrepancy. That Clef, I mean, because he's someone who has indistinguishable features, maybe he's actually able to make himself look however he wants to, whenever he wants to. So maybe he somehow disguised himself as a woman and did this. I don't know.
It's impossible to say what the truth is, but in my opinion, the former seems far more likely due to Clef's connection with the girl.
Right, it does seem like that would be the case.
The 166 article ends with a letter that was found in the girl's containment suite. The writer of the letter says that he first met 166's mother when she was a girl, and she had hooves for feet and starlight in her eyes. She wanted to take humanity back to Eden, a state of being instead of a place. He doesn't regret killing her, but he does regret that the first time he met 166 was when he was putting a bullet into her mother's head.
Yeah.
He hopes that she forgives him. He's sorry that she couldn't stay with the kind and loving people of the convent, but he promises to make her stay here pleasant and to...
It's strange though that, like, okay, so he met this goddess entity at one point in time when he got lost out in the wilderness on some other kind of job. Knowing, like, being who he was, right? I mean, I guess maybe it's a situation where I don't remember if he did he. I don't think he said he was injured in some way and that she nursed him back to health. Maybe he did, and I didn't catch that part. But you would think that being that he is a GOC hitman, he would immediately see this creature and just want to off it. You know what I'm saying? But not only that, the fact that he ends up having, obviously, relations with this goddess that led to him having a daughter with her, right? So it was like, was he entranced by this goddess? Did she, like, ensorcel him? You know, did she have some kind of similar property that her daughter has, but maybe more intense in some other kind of way? She could charm a man into doing what she wants, but then if that's the case, why would she not be able to do that later and prevent herself from being killed? You know, I don't know. It seems a little strange. Yeah, he was younger. Yeah, I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. It just seems, if he was still working, if he was working for the GOC then and was kind of like this GOC hitman, that seems like kind of a contradiction almost. Like, why wouldn't he just put a bullet in her then? You know, seeing that she's some kind of anomaly and the GOC would want to do that. But just in general, like, having a child with this being, right? Like, I feel like, I don't know. It seems strange. It would also seem like he would obviously have more of an extended relationship with this creature to then have a child. Because it would be strange for him to just, like, meet her and then them only, like, see each other that one time and then, you know, have sex and have a kid. I mean, I guess it's possible, obviously. But I don't know. I just, it feels like they would have a closer relationship, in my opinion, for them to just have this child with each other, and then for him to want to intercede in this child's life. You know, it could also just be a situation where he just feels guilty that he had to kill, you know, her mom. So he feels like he has an obligation to take care of her because she's an innocent, and he does have some kind of relation to her. You know, I don't know. Anyway, let's continue.
To keep her safe. He wishes her a happy 16th birthday. This letter then links us to another article titled A Suicide Note. Also,
I have a bunch of artwork of individuals facing non-big monsters because they look cool and it's metaphorical or something. I mean, you know, whatever, dude.
Also written by Dr. Clef. Which brings us to another major topic of discussion about Clef. The note begins with Clef stating his intention to kill himself, although he's unsure if he can even die. He ponders if he is actually Satan, and wonders if his punishment for defying God is never being able to interact with anomalies. We learn that rather than being a reality bender, Clef is a reality anchor, or claims to be. He can't see ghosts, or things that qualify as deities, demons, or anything else from outside of our universe, and they can't see him either. He can't be affected by reality benders, although he can touch them. He can't operate any anomalous machinery, and he can't walk into any alternate universe, despite attempts being made at all of these things. He says he's only been able to interact with 3 anomalies in his life, all of them female. The first was the love of his life, and he was told to kill her by the GOC. He refused and ran from the GOC and pledged his services to the Foundation if they provided amnesty for her. He's not referring to 166 here, so this somewhat contradicts what we've previously heard.
Right.
He interjects to talk about the first reality bender he killed, a 12-year-old girl that brought her doll to life because she was lonely and needed a friend.
Isn't that, we heard something about that, right? Isn't that the origin for the Build-A-Bear thing?
He had to run her over with a car. The second anomaly he interacted with was his daughter, 166, known to him as Epon. He's of course immune to her effect, but he remarks that he knew she was his daughter the instant he saw her, as she has her mother's eyes. She's being held against her will for the simple reason that she was born, and she doesn't deserve it. The third anomaly he's interacted with is SCP-239, who he refers to as Sigaros. Let's pivot then before we come back to that suicide note, and discuss SCP-239, as the interaction between her and Clef is rather notable. SCP-239 is a young girl with shimmering eyes, who is capable of doing anything she expresses a will to do. If that sounds rather powerful, that's because it is.
Yeah, no shit.
She is, for all intents and purposes, a reality bender of the highest magnitude.
Sounds like
although
it.
So far, she only affects things that she can see. In fact, her power seems to only be limited by her youth and innocence. The Foundation told 239 that she was a witch, only capable of using her abilities by casting from a pre-approved list of spells created by the Foundation.
Interesting. That's how they're essentially attempting to contain her by, I guess, curtailing her abilities and giving her the preconceived notion that she is a witch and she has this power, but she can only do these specific spells. Interesting.
239's self-preservation instincts still make her incredibly dangerous, however.
No shit.
And indeed, she first came to the Foundation's attention 3 hours after she was born, when the hospital was destroyed by an unexplained explosion.
Right.
She was found as the only survivor amidst the rubble. Despite the witch plan preventing escape attempts and curtailing her from developing her abilities on her own, Clef still submits a proposal for 239's termination. He proposes that, since 239's skin is typically impenetrable due to her abilities, a piercing element be constructed with SCP-148. 148 is an anomalous metallic substance normally capable of hindering mind-affecting properties of nearby organisms, but also has been shown to be capable of penetrating 239's skin.
So, I don't know. This is just where my brain went when I was just thinking. So, like, reality benders like her, would they be powerful enough to kill 682? Right? Because there's been a few instances where things have, like, actually killed 682. But you would think someone of, like, this capability in reality could essentially, like, just make them not exist, right? Could just make 682 not exist, you would think. So, like, that obviously would be a solution for that. So, I don't know. Anyway, let's continue.
Clef mentions that one of the dangers of this procedure is that 239 will wake up and perceive the operative as a friend. changing reality to match. Since he himself is immune to her effects, he volunteers for the operation. This leads us to the log for Incident 239B, detailing Clef's attempt. This is a rather lengthy log, so I'll be keeping just the important bits. We learn that Clef had sent his termination proposal over unsecured channels, and it had reached several staff members at the site where 239 is held. These staff members, possibly subtly altered by 239 to be her friends, took action to prevent Clef from carrying out his proposal.
Yeah.
This forces Clef to act as quickly as possible before someone alerts 239 of his plan, which could have devastating and unforeseen consequences. Clef is upset at the other members of the Foundation for not neutralizing the girl sooner, blaming their leniency on the fact that she's a young girl.
I mean, yeah, that's a pretty like precarious situation, honestly, because it is just a child and they are innocent, but at the same time, you're like, she's basically like the Phoenix Force from like X-Men, you know what I'm saying? Like, she has the power to create and destroy reality as she sees fit, and her power is only essentially contained by her youth and lack of imagination and or want or will to do anything harmful. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a ticking time bomb situation, you know? It's a nuke getting ready. It's a nuke ready to go off at any moment. And you're basically just sitting there holding your breath, waiting to see what's going to happen. So it's like, it almost is a situation where you have to do something about it. Unless you can find some kind of way of putting her in some kind of facility that can dampen her reality bending abilities and or have some other kind of SCP around her that can cancel out her abilities, and they just have to be with her at all times kind of a situation, you know? I don't know.
Clef arrives at the site, neutralizing security with tranquilizers, and makes his way towards 239. Unfortunately, by his account, 239 seems to already be warping the local reality of the site. Clef's main opposition at the site is a fellow doctor, Dr. Kondraki, who will probably get his own video at some point. Clef deals with a number of other SCPs in the process, and other doctors, Dr. Gears, Dr. Bright, and Dr. Crow, get involved as well. Gears fetches 239 and tells her that Dr. Clef has been overtaken by a mass of formless evil known as the Great Darkness. He tells her that he is an over-council wizard, and Kondraki is a swordsman, and the three of them must subdue Clef and drive the evil from him. He also grabs a Chinese dictionary, claiming that it's an emergency spellbook, which can only be used by two wizards at the same time, and only when the Great Darkness is around.
The fuck?
He tells her this story in order to maintain containment on her abilities, and she of course believes it. 239 proceeds to encounter Clef and casts Magic Missile under instruction by Gears, which causes great pain to Clef.
Now we're getting into some D&D stuff here. You know, we're getting into Baldur's Gate. You know, the SCP version, it just all of a sudden turned into a top-down game.
It also inadvertently causes a mass of black light to issue forth from Clef's body, taking the shape of a massive dragon. This would seem to be an unintended side effect of 239's imagination.
Yeah, that's what she seems the darkness as. Yeah, exactly. She literally thinks she's a D&D character. So like, and so the idea that the doctor gave her is, you know, her imagination sees this formless mass as a dragon, essentially. So now she's manifested this dark, formless dragon shadow creature from him.
The dragon causes a large amount of damage to the site before being killed by Dr. Crow, using another SCP in the form of a Sword of Light. 239, meanwhile, is sedated by Dr. Gears, and afterwards she is placed into a medically induced coma indefinitely. A post-incident interview between Kondraki and Clef has Clef implying that he is Satan, and that 239 is an incarnation of God, before breaking out into laughter.
Fuck.
It's unclear, of course, exactly what Clef is telling the truth about, as he seems to lie about most things.
Oh, what?
The entire incident is, of course, rather ridiculous, as was often the case at that time of SCP writing. Which brings us back to the suicide note, where Clef discusses the incident. He says that 239 terrified him because he could feel her in his mind, and if she could get into his head, she could do anything.
Right.
He admits that he didn't...
Because he's supposed to be a reality anchor immune to those things. So if she's powerful enough to actually affect him, then she essentially might be like in the top 3 potential reality benders in the SCP universe, right? I mean, it sounds like it so far. It sounds like Clef's pretty fucking out there. The best time of SCP, that an early SCP.
Need some fancy piercing implement to kill her, as even a sharp stick would work in his hands. He thinks the entire incident occurred as it did because 239 was just toying with them. It had made everyone act like idiots just for a laugh, and it had been doing it for years. He then says that she's dead now, after he injected her with a cocktail of both mundane and anomalous substances, causing her to literally melt. He claims that people have started to act normally again, released from her influence, but he knows that the Foundation is going to find out sooner or later that he murdered her. That's why he's going to commit suicide first, and he ends the note by saying that, assuming he can go to hell, he'll see everyone there someday. This note was found in Clef's office following the sounds of gunshots. Despite Clef's blood and some brain matter being found in the office, his body has not been recovered and his status is unknown.
Interesting. So he might have actually shot himself in the head and given himself brain damage to the point where he might not even remember anything, like maybe he wiped his own memory. But his body, like, he's still out there somewhere. Like, he recovered from it, healed from it, whatever, if that is the case, and he can't really die. So he's just out there somewhere. I don't know. He does sound like he went off the deep end at some point in time. I don't know. Who knows if maybe it's part of... I don't know. I'm just trying to think of, like, what would cause it. Maybe it's just a situation, his mental, faculties broke down over time with all the things that he had to do with the GOC at some point in time. Maybe it's something that this goddess, like, cursed him with, when he killed her. Being that he is the father of this child, I don't know. The father of, He had a child with this woman that he had to kill, essentially. And so she cursed him. Not that he's the father of this reality bender. He's the father of a different SCP. But anyway, let's continue. But he sounds pretty fucking crazy.
The nature of canon in the SCP universe is already incredibly loose. And when you combine that with Clef's infamous reputation for lying about practically every aspect of himself, it's quite difficult to discern any sort of truth.
I mean, yeah, the idea that he's like trying to say that he's Satan and like this little girl is God or a fragment of God, and so he had to kill it or whatever, and I don't know. Like, why would you say that? You know what I'm saying? Like, even if you're trying to cover something up, why would you say that? Why would you go there? That just seems weird, right? Why make yourself out again to be like this evil trying to kill God? I don't know. That just seems strange.
Is Clef actually Satan? I'll leave it up to you.
I mean, yeah, unless he's telling the truth.
But according to the author, the answer is maybe.
Which, I mean, like, if he's telling the truth and he's Satan and this little girl is God, you now have God thinking that she's a wizard in a D&D, reality. Like, she thinks she's a wizard. Like, what is that going to do when she grows up? And what does that mean? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you going to do if you keep God in a literal coma indefinitely for the rest of existence? And then what does that mean if God does and or can die in this mortal form. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's going down a whole other pathway. Anyway.
He says that Clef doesn't have red horns or reign over hell, but he does rebel against God, and he did cast humanity out of Eden. This brings up the possibility of Clef being Adam rather than Satan, but it seems we won't get any clear answers.
See, this is now like going into a lot of different ways here then too. And so like, what does that then mean that the druid woman, if he's Adam, is the druid woman, you know, goddess, was she Eve? And did he kill Eve? You know, I don't know. This is starting to go into some weird ways, you know. No, goddess sitting on a comfy reading chair near the fire on some SCP site, fucking with the staff because he's bored.
Clef's immunity or nullification of most anomalies is often mentioned when discussing the character, and there are a number of examples. One of the most notable, perhaps, is when Clef was locked in the same containment cell as SCP-682, the hard-to-destroy reptile.
If he was locked in the same containment cell and survived, then that obviously, yeah, signifies that he is more than meets the eye.
Clef and 682 continually stared at each other as Clef placed some explosives on the containment door, causing a containment breach. Despite the opportunity to escape, 682 continued to stare at Clef until he had engaged the secondary emergency doors, recontaining 682. The reason for this odd interaction between the two is left unexplained, but it's extremely outside of 682's typical nature.
No shit. The fact that he didn't try to attack him at all and or just sat there in like this almost kind of neutral position of, if you don't do anything to me, I won't do anything to you. That obviously signifies that there's something more to Clef. There's definitely more than meets the eye with that. Like, okay.
Clef had also given a seminar to Foundation agents about dealing with reality benders. Ultimately, he tells the agents to forget about containing or reasoning with them, and to just kill them before they even know you're there. Clef, of course, has an unfair advantage compared to the rest of the agents, however.
Right.
Dr. Clef is certainly an interesting character, although there are tales which paint him as more over the top and less serious than other tales, much like Dr. Bright. Ultimately, it's up to reader interpretation, much like most things in the SCP universe. Self-insert characters walk a fine line between being interesting and being gratuitous.
True.
As this is only a short summary of a large number of tales related to the character, it's probably not fair to judge simply based on this video. But either way, Dr. Alto Clef has cemented his place in SCP history.
Interesting. I mean, well, let's see if you have a quote here at the end. We do. We do. Item 138, Dr. A. Clef's actions during this incident directly caused the deaths of several SCP Foundation personnel and the destruction of a large portion of Site-17. I think Site-17 was mentioned in something else that I've read before. I know 13 is the one that had a lot of weird shit happening, but I remember Site-17 being brought up in something else a couple times, I think. Anyway, in addition, Dr. Clef has demonstrated several non-standard interactions with female SCPs, namely SCP-091 ARC, 166, and 336. Proposal. In light of these facts and Dr. Clef's own words during the incident, Dr. Alto Clef is to be classified as a Euclid-class humanoid SCP and secured at Site-17. SCP number and containment procedures will be assigned at a later date. Priority Alpha. Okay. Interesting. I mean, it kind of started off with him almost being like a James Bond kind of character, right? Like this person who, because he's, I guess, a reality anchor, can specialize in dealing with reality benders and other SCP anomalies because they don't essentially affect him. So you could almost be kind of like this one person hitman that goes out and seeks out SCPs and, you know, eliminates them. I don't know. I still feel like the story of him with the goddess is a little strange. I feel like there would have had to have been potentially more interaction between them, you know, for them to, you know, have relations and have a daughter kind of a situation, unless some SCP fuckery were to have happened. But he seemingly is immune to most of them, other than these 3 particular women, which maybe he was susceptible to this goddess as well. Who knows? But at the end there, it just kind of went off into some strange directions. Is he Satan? Is he not? Is this other character God? Is she not? You know, is he Adam? And was this other, you know, goddess Eve? And that whole thing, you know, is he the progenitor of mankind? I don't know. It's all kind of very strange. But like I said, I do kind of like the idea of like this almost kind of James Bond character who happens to, he doesn't necessarily have any, you know, anomalous abilities, but due to his nature as like this reality anchor, is immune to a lot of anomalous effects. So he's able to kind of go out and infiltrate things and, you know, almost act as like a hitman or whatever. And then because of his, you know, connection to this daughter of his, you know, decides to kind of give that life up and goes into, you know, bring her to the SCP or whatever. I find that to be kind of an interesting and compelling story, and one that could be elaborated on further. But anyway, so yeah, so that was Dr. Clef by the Exploring series. Links will be down below in the description as always, to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and to the Exploring series channel. So if you could please do me a favor, click those links. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if you enjoy the Exploring series content that he creates and you are not already subbed to his channel, please go over there and give the man a sub. He deserves it. Makes a lot of great content for the SCP universe as others. If you'd like to join in our discussions as we go through these reactions live, there is a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and the various tiers that I offer. You can get early access to videos, priority and requests that you for videos that you might have you would like me to do, etc., etc. So just take a look at those if you decide you would like to take your support for the channel to the next level. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, consider leaving a like and a sub, as it helps me and it helps the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day. Take it easy.